For this reason, the beginning is going to be somehow meticulous because it's necessary. We are dealing with thousands of years of knowledge. We are going to deal with primary sources, originals. There's going to be name, dates, and places. So let's get right into it. Africa, Afuraka. I'm not going to waste time about the Middle East claim because it doesn't make sense, as you can see. I'm going to break down the word Kemet for you. That's a hieroglyph, the Meduneta. Now the first symbol, that's for Kem. It's a piece of charcoal. I've crossed crocodile skin because that's what it's described as most of the time. Then you have the loaf of bread, that's the sound for T. Then the bird is actually a O, and that's for M. That sign there is the town, village, settlement, Egypt, Thebes. The numbers in bracket are the Gardner list number, and it can be useful, even though our ancestors obviously didn't use that. Some of you might say, fine, okay, but where can we see Kemet? No problem. This is the second Kamose Stela, number J43, at Luxor Museum in Kemet, Egypt. We are going to see where it's showing. That's line 23. Slowly but surely we're getting there. Here it is, in the middle of your screen. There's a slight close-up with the Meduneta transcript underneath. How old is Kemet? Thousands of years old. The first dynasty starts around 3100 BCE. Menes or Narmer or Mena is the king of the first dynasty. We're not even talking about pre-dynastic period. Some of you might wonder, really? Show and prove. No problem. Here is the royal list of Abydos located in Kemet. It gives in chronological order 76 kings from Menes, that's Narmer, to Seti I. Then you have the ancestors' chapel of King Jehutimes, commonly known as Thutmosis III. It's from the Temple of Ammon in Karnak, number E13481 bis in the Louvre Museum in France. There's 61 names there from Menes to Jehutimes III. You have the Palermo Stone around 2500 BCE, and that's located in Italy. The Narmer's Head, UC 15989 in Petrie Museum, London, and the famous Narmer Palette, CG 14716 in Cairo Museum. This is 5,000 years old. Why is it called Egypt today? It comes from Het Kap Ptah, the house of the Ka of Ptah, which gives Aegyptos in Greek, Aegyptus in Latin, and finally Egypt in English. Het Kap Ptah is Memphis, and that's what the US town is named after. I am going to show you where our ancestors wrote Het Kap Ptah about 3,000 years ago, but first I want you to get some understanding about the source that I will use. Pert M. Heru, commonly known as the Book of the Dead. It's a papyrus that's 3,000 years old, kept at the British Museum, number 10470. It's a compilation of spells and things to get you through the afterlife. It has to do with spirituality. Every time we quote the book, that's the edition that I'm on. You need to understand that there's all the versions, right? People will have that when they die, it'll be there with them in the coffin, and you have different ones, and I can give you examples. Here's the Pert M. Heru of Hunefer, around 1300 BCE, located at the British Museum. This one is the Pert M. Heru of Nat, same date, in British Museum again. Pert M. Heru of Nebseni, 1400 BCE, same location in London. Pert M. Heru of the scribe Nebked, that one is in the Louvre Museum in Paris, France. Those texts are derived from older ones called the Coffin Text, and here's an example right there. Coffin Text of Goa, around 1800 BCE, from Der El Bersha in Kemet, number EA30840 in the British Museum. That's well over 3,000 years old. The coffin texts are derived from older texts, which are the pyramid text. And there you can see the pyramid text of Unas around 2300 BCE. That's well over 4,000 years old. And then the pyramid text of Teti I in Saqqara, Kemet. Okay. Now, why is it called the Book of the Dead? Because it was found in coffin generally, like the one for Ani, for the scribe Ani. And we can check out the real name. It's actually in the book. So let's have a look. Page 28. The common name for the Book of the Dead, Pert em Heru, which words have been variously translated, manifested in the light, coming forth from the day. Page 355, it tells you that it's on plate 5. Okay, and here's a breakdown of plate 5. Pert em Heru. Now, why do we talk about plates? The papyrus of Ani was found, and it was 20 meters long. So Wallis Budge, who bought it, cut it into 37 pieces. That's why we are talking about plates. And there we're dealing with plate 5, and I'm showing you where Pert em Heru is written. Let's have a look now. We're going to zoom in. There it is. That's right there. So I'm just going to cut that and then show you the Medunetta transcript. And it's just right there, Pert em Heru. You will notice that the hieroglyph is slightly different. It's because it's cursive hieroglyph. Remember, I told you I would show you Het Kapta. Let's go. Page 438. Check out the Medunetta for Het Kapta. Underneath we have the translation. That's line 7. There it is. Now, on the previous page, it tells us that it's on plate 15. So let's bring it up. There it is. And we're going to zoom in. That's the one there. It's not that clear, so we look at another page. That's 490. Here's the Medunetta once again. It tells us that it's on plate 19. So that's plate 19 right there. We're going to zoom in. And there we go. It looks slightly better. Here's a close-up. And you can see that it's made up of sign Q3, X1, V28, D28, and O49. Now you definitely know the origin of the word Egypt. Now we're going to move on to something else. Let's deal with the word Pharaoh. It doesn't mean king, it means house. On the left you have Sultan, the original name that our ancestors used to describe a king. And on the right you have the Pharaoh symbols, the hieroglyphic signs. So it's all broken down to you, as well as Sultan, with the Gardiner list numbers if you want to take it further. Now on page 459, that's plate 16, you can see the word Sultan, and you have the translation. We're looking at line 6 right there. I am crowned upon my throne like the king of the gods. Now you do have the sign there, and also the 3 hatchets. They're not flag, they're actually hatchets. That's a symbol for Neteru. If you have one, then that's Neter. Okay, it's clear there in the middle. Another one that might be of interest to you. That's page 352, plate 2. We're looking at line 8. Homage to thee, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That probably reminds you of something. Yes, Revelations 19:16. You have King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Also Revelations 17:14, Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Let's move on. In this edition of the Pert em Heru from the same author, we can see how to pronounce the word for praise and adoration, which is toi, there on page 8. And then underneath you have it again, toi, adoration. Now you can see that in the edition that we're dealing with on several pages. First you have page 339. There, line 1, hymn of praise to Ra. You also have it on page 342. There again, praise to Ra. Page 347. And also on page 487. On page 496. And finally on page 511. So praise, adoration, toi. Praise of Ra, toi, Ra. Doesn't that sound like something you heard before? Think harder. There it is. Now it might just be a coincidence, who knows, but I just wanted to show you that. Let's move on. You can look up the legend of the destruction of humanity, otherwise called the Book of the Celestial Cow or Book of the Heavenly Cow. Could be another coincidence, just like those names, Thutmose, Kamose, Amos, Amenmose. Next, by Paris d'Aubierne at the British Museum. Compare the tale of two brothers with Genesis 39 verse 6 onwards. You have fun. Famine stela of King Joseph around 2600 BCE. In a period of 7 years, grain was corn, compared with Genesis 41 verse 30, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. Papyrus Leiden in Holland between 1800 and 1600 BCE. Now, even if Moses existed, he wasn't even born yet. Chapter 2, line 10. Indeed, the river is blood. Exodus 7:20. The waters that were in the river were turned to blood. There's plenty of other so-called coincidences. Let's deal with them. Chapter 2. Blood is everywhere. Exodus 7:21. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Chapter 2. Men shrink from human beings and thirst after water. Exodus 7:24. And all the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink. Chapter 2. He who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. Exodus 12:30. There was not a house where there was not one dead. Now, probably the most famous papyrus in the world, plate 31 and 32 of the Pert M. Heru, the Papyrus of Ani, commonly called Negative Confessions, Admonitions of Ma'at, Declaration of Innocence, or Principles of Ma'at. We're going to have a look. It's on page 576 that is translated. Right now we are going to compare the laws of Ma'at with the 10 Commandments. Let's have a look. Page 576, like I said, from the translation. Negative Confession number 27, I have not blasphemed. Exodus 20 verse 7, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord. Negative Confession number 24, I have not transgressed the law. Exodus 20 verse 8, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Negative Confession number 4, I have not slain man and woman. Verse 13, you shall not murder. Negative Confession number 3, I have not stolen. Exodus 20 verse 15, you shall not steal. Negative Confession number 8 and 18 respectively, I have not uttered lies, I have slandered no man. Verse 16, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. 20 and 21, I have not debauched the wife of any man. Verse 17, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Hopefully you will forgive me if the quality is not so great. You're supposed to see it all right there in full screen mode. Also, let me avoid any confusion. If you see the Bible quoted, it doesn't mean that I believe in it. I'm the type of person who pay attention to the original, not the copy. And even though most people go the other way around, that's because they do not know any better. Some people might tell you, look, the ancient Egyptians worshipped the sun, and so on. You just quote Psalm 84, verse 11. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. Hopefully they'll leave you alone, because either they go by the book or they shouldn't tell you anything at all. You cannot just pick and choose what suits you. Let's move on. Now I have to do this, especially for those who don't know. They keep repeating lies, so we have to keep saying the truth. The race of the ancient Egyptians. Now, Herodotus, nicknamed the father of history, he lived way after Kemet was finally invaded, which was around 600 BC. He was there 200 years later, more or less. And still at that time, he said, thirdly, it is certain that the natives of the country are black with the heat. And in saying that the dove was black, they indicate that the woman was Egyptian. It goes on to say, the Egyptians said they believed that the Colchians were a portion of the army of Sesostris. That this was so I conjectured myself, not only because they are dark-skinned and have curly hair. And he used the word olutrikes for nappy hair. That's just in case they say that, it's a bad translation. Next we have Aristotle, who lived 100 years after Herodotus. He says, those who are too black are cowards, like for instance the Egyptians and Ethiopians. He used the words agan melanes, which is Greek for excessively black. Once again, in case they try to pull that wrong translation thing. Next, Volney. He was speaking about the Copts. What a subject for meditation to see the present barbarism and ignorance of the Copts, descendants of the alliance between the profound genius of the Egyptians and the brilliant mind of the Greeks. Just to think that this race of black men, today our slave and the object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our art, science, and even the use of speech. Next, Champollion. You might have heard that name before. That's because he is the first European to decipher the hieroglyphs, thanks to the Rosetta Stone, which is in the British Museum. Now, he was writing to his brother, and he said, "We find there Egyptians and Africans represented in the same way, which could not be otherwise." Now I'm going to show you what he was describing. That's a painting from the tomb of Seti I. It represents the races of men as known by the ancient Egyptians. As you can see, it is greatly damaged and it doesn't look natural to me. I think some stuff were bothering them they didn't want us to know, because not only you have the image but also you have the meduneta, the hieroglyph which describes the scene. But anyway, there is that drawing there which is supposed to represent what I just shown, and it suits them because they're trying to say that the darker complexion is a Sudanese and then the one on the right is an Egyptian. But it's not the only place where they have shown the races of men as known to them, and Champollion actually talks about this in the letter to his brother. For example, there's the tomb of Ramesses III, and there's a German archaeologist called Lepsius who has made a drawing to depict that. Now, before I read it, I want to let you know that Cheikh Anta Diop actually used that image for the cover of his book Nation Nègre et Culture, which is the French equivalent to African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. Now, what is written says, this painting from the tomb of Ramesses III, 1200 BC, shows that the Egyptians saw themselves as black and painted themselves as such without possible confusion with the Indo-Europeans, Caucasoids, or the Semites. It is a representation of the races in their most minute differences, which ensures the accuracy of the colors. Throughout their entire history, the Egyptians never entertained the fantasy of portraying themselves by types B or D. Now, A is the Egyptian seen by himself, black type, B is the Indo-European, C the other blacks in Africa, and D the Semite. Now, I do not know if that description is actually on Lepsius' book, because I haven't read it and I haven't seen it. But I know for a fact that the image is, because Job has made the references in his book, okay? Now, keeping with the topic, race and color, I want to address the red thing there. I know they're throwing that a lot. You need to understand that 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, people didn't just walk to a shop and say, "Hello sir, can I please have some black paint? Thank you." No, it didn't work like that. What they had to do is use the nature to come up with the coloring, okay? And one thing is the red ochre that was abundant over there, and I'm going to give references for you to see, and I'm going to show you even more. Let's have a look. Life and Death in Ancient Egypt by Sigrid Heder-Hoenes, page 19. Red was produced almost exclusively from natural iron oxides abundant in Egypt. Egypt Revisited by Ivan van Sertima, page 53. Ancient Egyptians. The dark red race myth. The myth of the Egyptians belonging to the so-called dark red race was created in the early 19th century and continues to be perpetuated by modern scholars and laymen. This premise is based primarily upon the color generally used to depict the ancient Egyptians on wall and papyrus paintings and statues. I am of the opinion, similarly expressed by the late Senegalese scholar Cheikh Anta Diop, that there was no such thing as a dark red race. This hue, in fact, was also used in a symbolic context. Now look at these sisters from Namibia. They are from the Himba tribe. They are covered in red. There's another one who is covered from head to toe, the whole body. You also have that in Kenya. You can see it there. And just in case you want to say it's only sisters so far, here's a brother. So you can get an idea. A few centuries from now, they probably say, look, those people in Namibia, they were not black, they were not African, they were of a red race, they came from, I don't know, who knows, they probably say Asia or whatever, blah, blah, blah. They probably say they were mixed race, then blah, blah, blah. Anyway, compare the crown with the hairstyle. Nefertiti, that's her real face. I know you're used to this one, but that one is fake, it's anonymous. I recommend to the sisters not to wear it. Here's a close-up. Now compare the braid on that brother there with Akhenaten's daughter. Compare Tutankhamun's necklace with this sister from Kenya. Check out the colors. Compare the shape of Akhenaten's head with this brother from Rwanda. Another Himba sister from Namibia, and Akhenaten's daughter on the right. Look at the top of the hair. Watch carefully. Another Tutsi brother. He's not the same as before, but obviously the hairstyle is similar. You can compare that with the blue crown. Have a look at Akhenaten's mother. This is Khufu. Djoser. You can see they didn't like his nose. Mentuhotep. No, this is not a fez. Taharqa. Akhenaten lived around 1300 BCE. David, if he existed, lived around 1000 BCE. That's 300 years apart. Akhenaten was there 3 centuries before David, if he existed. I'm going to show you a case of plagiarism. Some might say it's just a coincidence. What you are looking at is the hymn to Aten, otherwise called the Great Hymn to Aten. Now, Aten is the god that Akhenaten was worshipping. Don't want to go through the whole story because it's available, but this was found in Armana. The original name was Akhet Aten, which means the horizon of Aten. That sounds similar to Akhenaten's name. Now what I'm about to do is compare the hymn to Aten with Psalm 104, and I will only say the verses because it's all in the same chapter, which is once again Psalm 104. Hymn to Aten. When you set in the western horizon of the sky, the earth is in darkness. Verse 20. You bring on darkness and night falls. Hymn to Aten. Every lion comes forth from his den. Verse 21. The young lion roar after their prey. Hymn to Aten. At daybreak, when thou arisest on the horizon. Verse 22. The sun ariseth. Hymn to Aten. All the world, they do their work. Verse 23. And man goes out to work. Hymn to Aten. Trees and plants are flourishing. Verse 16. The trees of the Lord are full of sap. Hymn to Aten. The birds which fly from their nests. Verse 12. Beside them the birds of the heaven dwell. Hymn to Aten. The ships are sailing north and south as well. Verse 26. There go the ships. Hymn to Aten. Who giveth breath to sustain all that he has made. Verse 29. When you take away their breath, they die. Hymn to Aten. You supply his necessities. Verse 28. That thou givest them, they gather. Hymn to Aten. How manifold it is, what thou hast made. Verse 24. O Lord, how manifold are thy works. Hymn to Aten. For thou hast set a Nile in heaven, that it may descend for them and make waves upon the mountains. Verse 13. He waters the hills from his upper chambers. Hymn to Aten. Thou makest the seasons in order to rear all that thou hast made. the winter to cool them, and the heat that they may taste thee. Verse 19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knows it's going down. Now, what is the most common symbol when you think of justice? Most of the time that's a woman who is usually blindfolded with a scale. Now look at plate 3 from the Papyrus of Ani, which is once again in the British Museum. In the middle you have a scale. On the left of the scale, whoever is being judged, that's his heart inside of that vase. On the right you have the feather of Ma'at, which is the Nether, the goddess of truth, justice, reciprocity, and so on. So once again, a feminine principle. Okay, when you think of a jury, you think of a tribunal. There's 12 people who make up the jury. Now let's look on the top. You have 12 people on the top, okay, just above the scale of justice. This, some people might say, it's just a coincidence once again, but I don't care. This is a fact, and you can just make up whatever you want of it. But just be reminded that this is about 3,000 years old. Okay, let's move on. Now what you are looking at is the Dendera Zodiac, located in the Louvre Museum in France. It was originally in Kemet. It represents the stars, and because of the presentation format you might not be able to see it in details, but if you put Dendera Zodiac on search engines you should see some better representations. It's the oldest zodiac known, the oldest circular zodiac known. Some of you might have heard about a mention of Israel in an ancient Egyptian document. They are talking about the Merneptah stele, erroneously called the Israel stele. It's in Egypt, in the Cairo Museum. Now I'm going to show you the line, the part that they claim means Israel. Okay, on the actual stele you read it from right to left, but for clarity's sake you're gonna see it underneath from left to right. So what I've done, right, because it's a bit technical there, is for those who want to take it further and maybe learn the hieroglyphs, the Meduneta, I have put the meaning of each symbols, and underneath I have put their number according to the Gardiner list. Okay, so then you basically have a breakdown of the meaning of that actual part. It's not the whole sentence, but that's the part that we are interested in. Some of those symbols you probably notice that there is no description, like no translations, because it doesn't actually mean a letter. It's just to give a better definition. You know, it's an ideogram, that's what it is. Okay, but basically what it spells is Isri-ar or Isrir. Okay, and that's how it's spelled most of the time. Okay, and another thing that's important, the last symbols is a man and a woman, and underneath you have the 3 strokes for the plural. So that tells you that it's talking about people, not an actual place. So it's talking about people. So saying that it means Israel is wrong, definitely. Okay, so if anybody is trying to throw that at you, then you know how to get back at them. All right, that's very important, because there's so many misconceptions. And the funny thing as well is that they are always trying to use, I mean, when it comes to archaeology, you know, and they try to have some legitimacy, they always have to go to the Egyptian documents. You understand? Anyway, let's move on. Now I think you would find this interesting. Daily Life of the Ancient Egyptians by Bob Brier, page 235. Egyptian woman gave birth sitting down, so gravity assisted the baby's exit, permitting less forceful contractions. Doctors probably did not assist at childbirth. That's what it probably looked like at the time. Then we are told how they will find out the gender of the child. On the same page he goes on to say, the woman urinated on 2 test patches of emmer and barley seeds for several days, If either grew, she was pregnant. If only the barley sprouted, she would have a boy. If only the emmer, it would be a girl. Okay, soon I will show some visuals, but before that I want you to see once again how they have copied some writings from our ancestors and it ended up in the Bible. What we're going to deal with is Amenemope, who lived between 1290 and 1190 BCE. That was during the 19th dynasty, and his writings are in the British Museum. It's called the Amenemope Papyrus, and it's dated around 1000 BCE. We're going to compare that with the Proverbs, and Solomon is the alleged author of the Proverbs. He lived around 950 BCE, so you can clearly see that Amenemope was around way before that. Okay. Now, Amenemope's instructions, chapter 1. Give your ears and hear what is said. Proverbs 22:17. Bow down thine ear and hear the words of the wise. Amenemope, chapter 1. Give your mind over to their interpretation. It is profitable to put them in your heart. Proverbs 22:17. And apply thine heart unto my knowledge. Amenemope, chapter 6. Do not displace the surveyor's marker on the boundaries of the arable land. Proverbs 23:10. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. Amenemope, chapter 7. If riches come to you by theft, they will not spend the night with you. They have made themselves wings like geese, and they fly up to the sky. Proverbs 23:5. Whilst thou set thine eyes upon that which is not, for riches certainly make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Amenemope, chapter 9. Do not fraternize with the hot-tempered man, nor approach him to converse. Proverbs 22:24. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go. Amenemope, chapter 10. God hates one who falsifies words. His great abomination is duplicity. Proverbs 12:22. Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. Amenemope, chapter 11. Do not covet the property of the dependent. Proverbs 22:22. Rob not the poor, because he is poor. Amenemope, chapter 13. Better it is to be praised as one loved by men, than wealth in the storehouse. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and love in favor rather than silver and gold. Amenemope, chapter 17. Make not for yourself a measure of two capacities. Proverbs 20:23. Divers weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. Amenemope, chapter 21. Do not circulate your words to others, nor fraternize with one who is too candid. Proverbs 20:19. He that goeth about as a tale-bearer revealeth secrets, therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. Now there's a bit left. I will still quote the Proverbs, but those parts coming are copied from the wisdom of Ptah-hotep. He lived around 2400 BCE. There's two fragments in the British Museum, and there's a Price papyrus in France written between 2000 and 1600 BCE. They are basically copies of earlier writings. And remember that Solomon, if he existed, lived around 950 BCE. Ptah-hotep wisdom. Don't be proud of your knowledge. Consult the ignorant and the wise. Proverbs 1:5. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. Ptah-hotep wisdom. If you meet a disputant in action, you will make your worth exceed by silence. Proverbs 17:14. The beginning of strife is as when one letteth out water, Therefore, leave off contention before it be meddled with. Ptahotep wisdom. If you are one among guests at a table of one greater than you, look at what is before you. Proverbs 23:1. When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee. Last one. Ptahotep wisdom. Do not boast at your neighbor's side. One has great respect for the silent man. Proverbs 17:28. A fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's have a look at a few. We're going straight to Giza. Now I know you know this, you saw this. Check out Orion. That's Orion's belt. Did you know that it was a line? And the pyramids, they're the oldest and the only remaining of the 7 wonders of the world. I'm not surprised they had to come up with the new wonders of the world. Now, leaving Giza, let's have a look at Saqqara. That's the step pyramid of Djoser, designed by Imhotep. You can see that was a long time ago. What you're seeing right now is Djoser's complex. This is Khufu's boat. It's quite large and still in good shape. Okay. Now, leaving Saqqara, let's have a look at Akhetaten. There's not much left. It was built only in 5 years, and it was abandoned 3,000 years ago. That was Akhenaten city, but there still remains. Leaving Akhetaten, let's have a look at Abydos. This is Seti the first temple, and that's inside. Now, leaving Abydos, we're having a look at Dendera. Here's a complex, another view. This is Heteru's temple, Hathor. Okay, leaving Dendera. Let's have a look at Luxor, probably the most famous place, especially for tourists. Looks lovely, doesn't it? That's the Hypostyle Hall, sorry. You see, there's one obelisk missing. It's because it was taken to Paris, in France. Leaving Luxor, having a look at Edfu. That's the rear view. Okay. Now we're gonna have a look at Kom Umbo. And Philae. It's very important that you see this. You know, when we talk about our history, it's backed up by archaeology, amongst all the other things that are all over the world in museums. It is still over there. Abu Simbel, a very lovely one as well. Very, very, very nice. Ramesu II. Okay, that was just a quick overview. There's so much more to see. This is actually in Sudan, in Meroe. That's a temple for Ammon, to Ammon, and that's a few of the pyramids that are over there. This shows what we came from and what we got to. That's the first Trinity, Heru, Osar, and Aset. I want to thank my brothers and sisters who are down with Kemet, who are down with Africa, Afuraka, who represent. And it might sound funny, but most of the people that I am thanking I do not know them. We are scattered all over the world, and we are trying to our best to open our people's eyes. I want to let you know that I know how it feels when your family and your friends and people around you take you for granted, do not take you seriously, might even try to, ridicule you, laugh at you, imply that you are almost crazy because you are not trapped into a belief system like most our people do. Okay? I really know how it feels. I want you to stay strong. I know it's easier said than done, but I feel like telling you that, I know, normally for us life is hard anyway, but when you do not follow the status quo, then it's even harder, obviously. So thank you for the job you're doing. Most of you are doing it online. Also, you try to do it, with the people you know. But once again, when people know you, they take you for granted. It's a shame, but that's the way it is most of the time. Okay. Now, I hope that you liked what you saw so far, and I hope also that you are going to understand that, as the title says, it's an introduction to Kemet, just an introduction. We're talking like about an empire that lasted well over 3,000 years, and that's a dynastic period. Also, I would like you to not let anybody keep on lying about our ancestors, about this slavery myth in Kemet, about this alleged enslavement of the Hebrews, because this is all fiction, as history and archaeology shows us. It is really sad when we think about them. They lived good, they did good, they didn't go and assault people for no reasonable reason. They were defending themselves because they used to be attacked, okay? But there's no comparison, with the way that they used to live and the way that the others used to live, And then today, centuries later, we are basically cursing them. It's a very sad thing. Now, for all those of you who have, we might call it belief or spirituality, just think about it. The same ancestors who laid down a foundation for you, then today you see them as evil people who enslaved and did so many horrible things. And it's wrong, it's false, it's not true, it's fictional. Yet you do not seem to have much condemnation for the people who really enslaved us and did so many horrible things, and who for the most part are still doing it. You need to be fair. Okay? And really, we are so lucky that all these things have remained, that you can go all around the world and see the reliefs, see the writing, the Meduneta, the hieroglyph on papyrus, on walls, paintings, and not only those who are all around the world, but also those that are still in Kemet. And you are probably aware that a lot of writings and statues and such are being chiseled out, destroyed. It's just a good thing to share the information, fair play, but I would like to take it to another level, and I cannot do that by myself. And really, as far as I'm concerned, there is no proper foundation in falsehood. See, I hear a lot of talk about quote-unquote unity, many times coming from some of us who are into what's called the three major belief system, because at the end of the day they kind of have the same patriarchs and the same prophets. We have ancestors who have written literature way before those people, and we happen to find out that they have been copied, but yet we do not call them prophets, our own ancestors. We take the copies and we consider it holy as a people. You understand what I'm saying? But not the writings of our ancestors. I would like to say that as a people, we should be humble and realize when we are wrong. But most of us don't, because we have spent so many years into a belief system. We just do not want to take another route. And then at the same time, we're going to claim to be open-minded. Come on. You understand what I'm saying?